Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I am Waqar Ahmad and this is the microbiology lecture, and today we will study about the sources and communicability of infectious diseases. The sources and communicability of infections. Source, it is defined as it is a host which allows the pathogen to live and possibly grow and multiply. On the basis of communicability, the infections divided into two types: the non-communicable infections and communicable infections. So the non-communicable infections, those infections which cannot be transmitted from human to human. It includes the infections which may derive from the patient's normal flora, which are also called opportunistic infections. And these infections are mostly caused in immunocompromised persons. For example, the normal flora of intestine, it may cause urinary tract infections. The second is the infections which may be caused by the ingestion of preformed toxins, such as botulism, which is caused by Clostridium botulinum, that is a bacteria. The third is the infections which may be caused by certain organisms which are found in the environment. For example, tetanus, which is caused by Clostridium tetani. The Clostridium tetani, it is found inside. Its spore may remain up to many years inside and it may cause tetanus. So these are the ways by which the infection can be caused by non-communicable way. Now the other is the communicable infections. Now the communicable infections, it requires that an organism must be able to leave the body in a form that is directly infectious. For example, if organism leave the body, so this organism be able that it will directly infectious. This is one of the form. For example, the respiratory spread of the influenza virus. This is an example of direct communicability. The other is the organism able to become so after development in a suitable environment. For example, the malarial parasite, it requires a developmental cycle in a biting mosquito before it can infect another human. So this malaria, it cannot be transmitted directly from person to person. Now there are some routes of transmission. The routes of transmission, so there are two types of routes of transmission: the horizontal transmission and the vertical transmission. So these are the majorly two types of transmissions. The horizontal transmission, it includes the direct or indirect transmission of infectious disease from person to person. And the vertical transmission, these diseases, they are transmitted from mother to fetus. Now there are some major routes of horizontal transmission. The first is respiratory spread. The respiratory spread, in which the infections are transmitted through respiratory way. For example, the efficiency of this process, it depends on the method of propulsion of discharges. So the second one is the size of the aerosol droplets and the resistance of the infectious agent to desiccation and inactivation by ultraviolet light. So the efficiency of this process, it depends on these factors. The first one is the method of propulsion of discharge. This is the second factor, and this is the third factor. For example, a 10 micrometer particle, it remains airborne for about 20 minutes. So as the size of the particle smaller, so there will be longer, it will be for a long time, it will become an airborne. The particles of 0.6 to 5.0 micrometer, mostly such particles are called droplet nuclei. So the droplet nuclei, it may attach to the mucous sites at respiratory tract and it may initiate infection. For example, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The respiratory secretions are often transferred on hands or inanimate objects, vomits. So the respiratory secretions, it may also transfer through hands. For example, if the hands are not hygiene, so it may also the way of transmission, and it may also transmitted by inanimate objects, and sub-objects are called fomites. The other is the salivary spread. The salivary spread, some infections such as herpes simplex and infectious mononucleosis. So these infections can be transferred directly by contact with infectious saliva through kissing. So the infectious mononucleosis is also called kissing disease. The cold sores are caused by the herpes virus, also transmitted through saliva. Some infections, for example rabies, it is transferred from animal bites. So this virus, it is present in the saliva of animals. So rabies is also one of the example of salivary spread. It is also the example of zoonotic spread and also the salivary spread. The fecal-oral spread. The fecal-oral spread, it involves direct or finger-to-mouth spread. The organisms that are spread in this way commonly multiply in the intestinal tract, and it may cause intestinal infections. The organisms be able to resist the acid in the stomach, the bile, and the gastric and small intestinal enzymes because the stomach contains high acidic environment. There are also some enzymes present which degrade the microorganisms. So these microorganisms should resist such environments. Now, the members of, for example, the members of the Enterobacteriaceae, for example, Salmonella, Shigella, they are able to cause the intestinal infections, and unenveloped viral intestinal pathogens, enteroviruses, are more likely to survive. One of the examples of this virus is hepatitis A. The other is the skin-to-skin transfer. Skin-to-skin transfer, it occurs with infections in which the skin is the portal of entry. For example, syphilis, that is caused by Treponema pallidum, and the strains of group A streptococci that cause impetigo, and the dermatophyte fungi that cause ringworm and athlete's foot. So these are the examples of skin-to-skin transfer infection. The skin-to-skin transfer usually it occurs through abrasions of the epidermis, which may be unnoticed by most of the people. The other is the blood-borne transmission. The blood-borne transmission it may be in two ways. The direct transmission from human to human through blood transfusions and blood products, and increased self-administration of illicit drugs. For example, most of the people who used injections, and these injections are not sterile injections for drugs. So it may also cause the blood-borne disease. For example, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, as well as HIV. So they are transmitted directly through blood. Some are also through insect vectors, which requires a period of multiplication or alteration within an insect vector. For example, in the case of mosquito, the malaria parasite is transmitted through mosquito. So this mosquito, it bites one person which is already infected. So when the mosquito bites, so it takes some blood from that person, and this parasite, it completes their life cycle in the mosquito, and then it may also transfer to the next person. The other is the genital transmission. The genital transmission, this spread occurred between the two sexual partners. For example, the chlamydia trachomatis, the cytomegalovirus, the herpes simplex virus, and Neisseria gonorrhea. So these diseases are transmitted by genital transmission. The other is the eye-to-eye transmission. These diseases may be spread by direct contact through ophthalmologic equipments or by secretions passed manually or through fomites such as towels. For example, trachoma caused by chlamydia that caused blindness in most of the developing countries. The other is the zoonotic transmission. Zoonotic transmission means that when infections transmitted from animals to human, they are transmitted from animals. These organisms have their natural reservoirs in the animals, and from animals they are transmitted to humans. Some zoonotic infections, such as rabies, they are directly contracted from the bite of the infected animal, while some are transmitted by vectors For example, through arthropods. For example, the vectors may be ticks or mosquitoes. And the second major type is the vertical transmission, as we have talked the horizontal and the vertical transmission. So the earlier were the transmission were the types of the horizontal, and now this is the vertical transmission. The vertical transmission, it spread from the mother to the fetus through the placental barrier. One of the way is that through the placental barrier. The other way is that the infection may be transmitted by contact during birth with organisms such as group B streptococci, which colonize the vagina. When the vagina is infected, so it may also cause infection to the baby. The other way is it may also transmit it through the breast milk, and this is the cytomegalovirus. So by these three ways, the vertical transmission occurs. So through placental barrier, the example is rubella virus. Through vagina, the example is Neisseria gonorrhea. And through breast milk, the example is the cytomegalovirus. So this is all about today's lectures. Thanks.